Welcome to the Popcorn Effect, the podcast where education, leadership, and innovation come together to spark powerful change. Just like popcorn bursts into something greater, we explore ideas, stories, and strategies that transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Whether you're an educator, a leader, or an innovator, this is your space to ignite creativity, challenge the status quo, and lead with purpose. Tune in, get inspired, and get ready for a poppin' good time as we hear from innovators, inspirational, and passionate educators who are creating the popcorn effect wherever they go. I'm your host for this adventure, Sandra Donahue, and we are going to meet our guests and leaders in creating the popcorn effect wherever they are. They exude positive energy and enthusiasm. They are advocates for well-being. They are hype men for their communities. They are always willing to share and to be there for each other. They are podcast hosts and authors and friends of mine. Welcome to Dr. Chris Jones and Craig Shapiro, or Shap. Welcome, gentlemen. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I thought maybe we could start with a little story of how the two of you connected and maybe something that you're doing together. I don't know who wants to go first.
I'll let you go first, Craig. I know we met through podcasts and everything, but our last conversation on your podcast, when we only got about halfway through the questions you wanted to talk about, and we decided to go in another direction, which was pretty cool. And I'm super grateful for it. But I'll let you go ahead and explain what it's all about, because it's your idea. I just kind of hopped on for the ride.
Well, Doc Jones, Sandra, glad you guys are here. So I actually met Chris. We connected through X. I've known Chris for a long time. Was fortunate enough to be on his podcast years ago. Had a great time, and then at some point I started my podcast, Cutting the Crap with Shap, and was just really lucky enough to have Chris on. So in the middle of the podcast, I was listening to Chris and so impressed with his passion and vision that I had the idea of doing something by myself called Small Nuggets, Big Change. I wanted to do something that would be under 10 minutes long, that would be able to reach people in a very quick way. And it would be something that would be like all about self-improvement, wellness, and just ways to lead a happier life. So basically, I just said to Chris, man, you're killing it here, man. We got to do something together. So I just basically said, hey, I was going to do this alone, but if you want to hop in with me, and no pressure. And Chris just hopped on with me, and I believe we are coming up to episodes either 7 or 8. I'm not 7. Yeah,
7.
I think 7.
7. So, it's been an amazing experience. We share great ideas, and the best thing for me is I know that I have a co-host who is a visionary, somebody who shares my values to a great extent. And I know that when we put something out there, the product is going to be something that is universally accepted as something positive. Don't have to agree with it. It's universally accepted as positive. And that was ultimately the vision that we kind of talked about. And we also come up with different prompts. So something we kind of talked about is when we come up with a prompt, if I give Chris the prompt, he will make a video, but I don't watch his video until after I've done mine.
Oh, okay.
That way we're not swayed by what each other's going to think. And if he makes the prompt, I will do it, and then he'll do the wrap up. So basically it's just a format of somebody goes first, the other person goes second, the first person will wrap up the video with what their take is of what the second person said.
Neat. I love that idea. And I know that both of you have your own podcast and that you've both written your own book. and you've had lots of influence and lots of small nuggets and big changes over the years. And I know that it's amazing because none of us work in the same area, but we all met through social media and obviously our shared passion for education. So I was wondering if, I don't know, Chris, if you want to go and maybe talk a little bit about some of the passions that, you know, you bring into your school community and some of the things that you're doing that could absolutely be a small nugget, but that could have big change in somebody's school community.
Sure. The tried and true small nugget. First of all, I bring in the idea that everybody should feel part of the community. They should feel accepted, and they should feel accepted for who they are. You know, too often we get into the idea of I have to pretend to be somebody or I have to act like something else so that I'm with the in crowd. And that is just such the wrong way to go about things. But we could stop that so much easier if those crowds didn't expect people to act like them to accept them. And so I try to bring the idea of authenticity and belonging to my school. And when you're talking about small nuggets, I'll go to the old tried and true for small nuggets. I do a welcome sign Wednesday.
Big fan of that, by the way. Big fan here.
And the reason I want to go to that is because last year it started where I had my assistant principal come out and do it because the assistant principal, you know, is seen as a disciplinarian at the secondary level. He did it, and he had so many people taking pictures with him. He got bus drivers, he got everybody. And we've got music going on in the front of the building every day for arrival. And then the dean of students did it. And then teachers started to do it, so much so that I had to create a sign-up list so we wouldn't be confused. I have groups of teachers coming out and doing it in the morning now. And it became a competition between departments who could get the most pictures with the most students with the signs. And so welcome sign Wednesday. It doesn't have to be a Wednesday. There's positive sign Thursday. I know a whole group was doing that. You know, you just throw your hashtag on there for your school and you put positive messages on there. And I know it was being effective for two reasons. One, I was sitting at one of the graduations and it was part of the salutatorian speech. She put in how much that affected her, and how leaving high school, there isn't going to be somebody there to tell you that you're great, you're awesome, go get them. And then the other one is that the teachers signed up. I actually this week, I have a group coming up for mental health. It's a mental health group that we have in the school that works on defeating the stigma of mental health because mental health is health. But so we really focus on that. So just look, if I had to give small nuggets, look for the small things to do. Look for a sign and a marker where you can just hold a sign up and take a picture of it and spread it around. Make sure your message is consistent whenever you're talking to students about creating an environment where people are accepted for who they are, not who people want them to be. And when they can live in their own skin like that in authenticity, they feel like they belong. Because we can't create a place that is absolutely perfect for everybody, but we can create a place where people feel welcomed. And once they do that, your culture really starts to shift around where you can feel it when you walk in the building. We did today, actually, we did the first of two career fairs we have, or not career fairs, activity fairs that we have going on. We have this wind block period at the end of the day.
Please describe that. It just sounds so fabulous. Yes.
No, sure. And see, you got me talking. I'm going to talk forever.
I know.
It's short.
Frank, we're going to give you a chance. Don't you worry.
There you go. It's short. It's short for what I need. And it's traditionally very difficult for high schools to put in because of the rotating schedule, and they get some form or fashion of it, and there's different pieces to it. But to do it for us, we had to change our whole schedule. And we came up with a very creative schedule that's super teacher friendly and student friendly. And WIN sits at the end of the day. And so in the beginning of the year, for the first 3 weeks, the main office took on the responsibility of scheduling WIN for all the students and for all the teachers. So they didn't have to worry about when they come back, how does this work? So they could slowly bleed into it.
Right.
And today we split them up. We had the freshmen and seniors going to the gym where we had all our clubs. we have like 46 clubs or something like that, go in and walk around to the different tables where the club officers were. And they
Right.
could explain them, because we want to expose them to getting involved. I mean, all your research shows that the more you get somebody attached to school, the better
Yeah.
they do. And it's
Correct.
part of building our community. So at the
Yeah.
same time, we sent our sophomore and junior classes to our auditorium to be spoken to by our school counseling staff, that operates out of our student support center, to
Right.
let them know that nobody should ever suffer in silence. And they gave them all kinds of tips and tricks, how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with stress. And when I wrapped it up, I focused on that. I said, look, it's not a matter of if you're going to have stress or anxiety. If you're doing this thing called life right and pushing yourself to the greatest height you can be, you're going to be stressed. You're going to have anxiety. So you need these strategies to
Yeah.
deal with it. It's not about avoiding it. It's about facing it and dealing with it, because you're going to have stress your whole life.
Right.
And so then they did that, and tomorrow we'll flip it. And the sophomores and juniors will
Right.
go to the activity fair. Freshmen will go for that meeting, and then seniors have their own separate class meeting to get ready for the year.
Amazing. So, I love that idea, what I need, because it's extremely personalized and tailored to that student, what it is that they need, and then to be able to tap into, what it is that they want out of their school, right? Out of their
Right,
school
right.
experience as students. And I know, Craig, you and I spoke a lot, because I know you're a huge wellness ambassador at your school and just in life in general. And you described a little thing that you do in your classroom for your students. Another great acronym, I think it's the FRAT, and maybe you can sort of talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. First of all,
Yeah.
I love, it's funny. I am an acronym guy,
Yeah.
and it's funny though, but acronyms are only good if you actually make them useful.
Yes, for
So
sure.
an acronym is just a bunch of words. If you don't do anything with it, it's a waste of time. So you have to actually do something with it. So I love the idea of like win, like what I need.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But it sounds funny, but it's so important. I mean, if you think about students and staff, they're all coming with different things that they need. We all have different needs, so you have to address them.
Yeah.
So I love what Chris does. On my end, there's a few things that I tend to do. I created something called shout outs at my school. It's about, I guess, about 5 years ago, where I felt that like the same students and the same staff were always being like given accolades. It gets old. Like it actually builds resentment, because it's the same thing over and over again. You don't want to hear Shap is this and Shap is that, but Sandra or Chris never get anything. You got to spread the wealth.
Yeah, for sure.
Wealth. And so I started doing shout outs per grade, and students would shout out each other and shout out teachers. And it's been really fun, really successful. But as for the acronym of FRAT, it's just kind of a wellness acronym that I believe strongly in. And it stands for food, rest, attitude, training. Food, rest, attitude, training. And it's just the cornerstones of wellness. The food that you eat, eat things that grow from the ground. The rest that you get, well, if you're getting 3 hours of sleep, you're going to be grumpy. Stop getting 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And then the training, I'll skip the A for a second. The training is how much movement are you getting? If you're sitting down on the sofa and all you're doing is just sitting all day and you say, I'm tired, well, you're not moving enough. Get moving. So that's the F, the R, and the T. The A is what I talk to students probably more about than anything else, and staff in my school, and that's your attitude. If your attitude sucks, change it. It's rather blunt, but sometimes people need to hear that. If you're coming into your workplace, and it doesn't have to be school, it can be any place, attitude's not very positive, you're not just affecting yourself, you're affecting everybody around you, because the vibe that you're giving off is not going to help other people be better.
Right.
It will make them miserable.
Right.
And no school or business or any entity can function when the attitude is toxic. Well, they can function, they just won't function well.
Right.
And in a school setting, I was saying before that I was watching the body language of my students in my last period class today. And I walked down the steps and I said, hi, everybody, good morning, afternoon. And some kids are like, hey, Shap, and other kids are like this.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to them when we got into the classroom to think about your attitude
Mm-hmm.
and how it affects you and other people. And I really believe strongly that that whole frat acronym, it ties together so much to society in general.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we don't think it does, it
Mm-hmm.
does. And it's how we bring them together
Mm-hmm.
that makes the biggest difference.
Right. And I think as well, both of you are huge, community minded people. You really want to make sure that you are, connecting to your community, whether, it's your community in your classroom, your larger community. And, Chris, what you described, like when it's, first thing in the morning and you're welcoming them with music and signs and so on. And then, Shap, you standing in the halls and saying hi and greeting your people. We know how important this is, right? And as we've referenced so many times, these are small things, but they have big impact, right? They really do. And sometimes those are the things that we take, to heart because we know when they're missing. And we sometimes can't really put your finger on it. But if somebody, who's been doing that kind of stuff for a long time, no longer does it, you're sort of like, well, wait a minute, where'd the welcome signs go, right? We're looking for them. Hey, where's Shap, waving at me in the hallway? And you have those, voids that you're trying to fill. So, I think about those types of things, those small nuggets, those big, big changes. And I think, is there something that you would say, like a piece of advice that you would give, either to, your youngest new staff member or, somebody, your newest students at your school or anything like that? I don't know, Chris, do you have a little piece of advice or something that you like to share, a pearl of wisdom, perhaps?
Don't follow the norm. Do
Okay.
something different or new each week. Pick something that you can do. And because when you do those small things, when you don't follow the norm, I hate the phrase, and hate's not too strong of a word. My mother always said hate's a strong word. It is, but I hate because we always do things that way. Why do we
I
do
know.
things? When you get, and this is the beauty of a student teacher, this is
Yeah.
the beauty of having somebody that you coach or that you mentor that follows you
Yes.
around, because it forces you to reflect on why you do the things you do because you have to explain it to somebody. And so if
Correct.
you're not journaling each day, that's a small nugget. Journal each
Yeah.
day on what your day was like and ask that question. Really
Yeah.
interrogate yourself. Why did I do that way? Why did I
Mm-hmm.
deliver that lesson that way? Why did I talk
Right.
to that kid that way?
Yeah.
And when you figure that out, and now this is, you wonder why I love this guy, Shap. When you reflect on that, say you
Yeah.
blew up at a kid. Why'd you blow up at a kid? Were you
Right.
hungry? Were you tired?
Yes.
Right? And that acronym comes right when you were talking about that, Shap, and I didn't hear that acronym before now. When you were talking about that, man, that hits home. But my nugget to people would be to change it up, do something different, because the newness will revive you. It will regenerate you. And if you fall on your face, okay, that's cool. So try something different. But what that does is, see, it's all about productive struggle. We
Yeah.
cannot succeed or reach higher levels or do new things, innovate things without a struggle. But
Right.
it's got to be a productive struggle. So if you try something and you fall down, that's cool. That doesn't work. Put it
Mm-hmm.
away.
Mm-hmm.
Try something new next week. Go back to
Right.
your comfort zone a little bit and then try something new next week. But keep stepping outside of that comfort zone. And before you know it, and if we have
Mm-hmm.
time, I don't know if we have time, I can explain an example to you. Before you know it, you won't mind betting big and going
Right.
big, where you're
Right.
walking that edge of this could go really bad or it
Yeah.
could be awesome. So what
Right.
do? We decide to do it because you bet on awesome.
That's right. Yeah. No, and it's such a sound, solid piece of advice because I think sometimes we just get so used to the same grind and we forget that, being risk takers, is a really important part of being an educator. Yeah. And I know, Shap, I've had many conversations with you, great little nuggets, but maybe what's a piece of advice? Because, you know, again, you're a classroom teacher for so many years. You're so invested in your community still. You know, what are you doing to keep that investment in that school community and keep yourself, you know, fresh every single year as you approach the start?
So what I would say, and this goes back to, this could be for me or for anybody else.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew this is when I was young, and I didn't, because I was just young and inexperienced. But my thing is, think small, dream big.
Nice.
And I try to live that every day.
Yeah.
I really do. And what I mean by that is, it's very easy to want to make this huge impact immediately.
Right.
And I would never say that that's impossible, because we don't know that.
Right.
But I will say that you're setting yourself up for so much disappointment if that's your ultimate goal all the time. And it's just not realistic. As a competitive power lifter, I've always kind of thought of myself is that the goal is for me to think small little changes to lead to a big thing.
Right.
And it's the same thing in education. If I was talking to a new teacher or a new administrator or even a student, I always say to them, think about something small that you can do and keep repeating it. If you keep repeating it, it becomes big. And that goes to anything. It's like, just to give an example, it's like, we were talking about writing today. It really got me fired up, like, because I hear these grandiose ideas of having kids write, and I'm like, give the kid a book that they want to read and have them write a little bit. Like, God, you're making this so darn complex. Like, don't give them Macbeth right off the get-go. Give them something small that they actually are interested in, and see the small little changes they make. And they keep making that small change. Now you give them something a little bit more. Now the change starts to become big. And before you know it, you don't have to give them anything more, because they're doing it on their own.
Right.
And that is what happens. And when you think of something huge and and my final thing on it is, I would say, is that in education, we look at what the one person did. Oh man, look at what Sandra did. It's amazing. Yeah, but that's Sandra. That's Sandra, or Chris, or Chef. That's us. That's not everybody.
Correct.
So instead of comparing what everybody else is doing, start giving people small little things to do to lead to big change for them.
Right. Right.
Preach.
You know, that's
Preach.
such a great idea that you two should have a podcast that's called Small Changes. Small Nuggets, Big Changes. I don't know. Just popped in my mind. No, I definitely love that, because I think that we do sometimes lose sight, right? And we just have to stay right in that nice pocket of constantly pushing, but then also just in this state of evolution and change. And, you know, we can just evolve and be our best selves. So one fast, quick, how do you heat your oil and keep your passion going? Chris?
Me, how do I heat my own, keep my passion going?
You know, how do you?
Oh man, Craig was going to jump in and take that for me too.
Oh,
I heat my oil by just thinking of what could be. And it's funny because Craig, you said with small changes, my why has been clear, and that for quite some time now, and that is to create and improve a better educational experience for everyone involved, the whole community. And any chance I get to communicate better, draw people in, help people take small steps towards greater change, I'm in. And just the thought of being able to do that, that's why I said yes right away. One, because Shap is Shap, and I love working with the guy. But two, because of that idea, the small nuggets, big change. You know, success isn't a destination, it's a journey. And that's what gets me going. When I can see the small changes, when I can see that big ocean liner of the educational system made up of all these people starting to turn, and to turn a little more, I just love making it turn. and getting it
I
going in the
love
right
it.
direction.
Yeah. Such a great analogy, right? Such a great thing to think about, that turning. Okay, Shap, you got a quick one? We got like 1 minute.
Well, my popcorn effect is very basic. I just love helping people.
There you go. Well, and you know what? And that just takes so many levels, because it's so true. It's so genuine and so truthful, because you even mentioned how you love to train people, how you're a mentor at your school. He's a mentor to teachers and students and community members, and with your weight training and everything else. The two of you are always fired up, and I personally can't wait to hear your, small nuggets, big changes podcast. Podcast number 7, I believe, is going to be released very soon. And I do want to thank you so much for sharing your kernels with us today, and just to remind you to keep on popping. And for those of you who are listening, what's your next pop?